If you're talking about evolution, then why not use technologies like this that really make children just feel the awe, the wonder, the enjoyment and the fun of what it is that they're trying to learn.
My name is Nik Nagarkar and you are locked into Culture TV. For the culture, by the culture. Let's go.
You alright?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
This is a new...
this is a new experience for us, isn't it?
It is to be talking on all this.
Normally we're shouting at each other from across the Gulf over there.
But it's not awkward.
It's not at all. Not at all. All right, Cookie.
Has Cookie made her culture debut? Is she on the camera there, Alex? Yeah. Keep her in, bless her. So, no, I thought it would be a really... well, we have a lot of good conversations off camera.
We do.
And I thought it would be good to capture that and put it in the time capsule.
Excellent.
So, to give a bit of a sort of background into sort of who you are, is you are the Senior Director at Discovery Education and you're Head of Immersive Content.
That's right, yeah, Immersive Content.
How would you, Immersive Content, well, I know what it is because I know you, but could you sort of break that down, what immersive content is?
Most people think immersive content is virtual reality.
Yeah.
And sure it is.
Yeah.
You know, part of it, you think of being immersed, you think of putting something on your head.
Yeah.
And you're completely immersed in that content. But actually, immersion is something that happens in your head.
Okay.
So it's any kind of content that sort of draws and pulls you into it.
Right.
And completely immerses you in the effect that's happening in it. So a book is immersive content, music's immersive content, but for us it's something that uses technology as a channel to create that immersion.
Right.
So it could be augmented reality, it could be virtual reality, it could be a game, so gamified content, it could be anything, something that really pulls you in. That's immersion.
So Discovery is one of the leading suppliers of educational content globally.
Yeah.
And as you being sort of one of the sort of lead developers in terms of immersive content, but that's sort of specifically in your particular line of work, as I know it, it would be in augmented reality.
Yeah.
And how do you think new technology like augmented reality and virtual reality is going to impact education moving forward?
Well, it's really interesting because 12 months ago, which is a significant date, everyone goes 12 months ago, we would have been doing a lot of virtual reality.
Right.
And you know us from the past 12 months of doing lots of augmented reality, which we were doing anyway. But the reason we're doing augmented reality now, not so much virtual reality, is because of the pandemic.
Right.
So if you think of the fact that we're all wearing face masks and we're all keeping our distance and everything, imagine some children in a classroom in an education context, putting a virtual reality headset from their face onto someone else's face, and then, you know, because you don't have one of these each for every child, then really it's not something that we want to be able to do.
Right.
Plus, I was quite pleased about that as well, because everyone thought that immersion was virtual reality. It pushes you into doing something which is a very solo experience.
Right.
So when you put a virtual reality headset on, which is amazing experience, fantastic for gaming, fantastic for individuals, but in a learning context it's a bit difficult because learning happens amongst your peers, it happens amongst all the children in your class. Put a headset on, you're cut off from that, you're absorbed, you're immersed, but
it's no longer a shared experience.
It's not a shared, and learning is a social experience. I always say that learning is social, and virtual reality can be a social experience, but if you think about it in the context of a classroom and how that's traditionally delivered, then virtual reality is not a social experience.
How would you so for someone who doesn't know what augmented reality is, how would you break that down?
So augmented reality, or augmented means you're adding something. So we're looking at reality and we add something else to that reality to augment it. So typically you'd see a 3D model or something, an animation, a cutscene, a sequence that would be overlaid onto your surroundings. And you'd look at that through a device, typically a tablet or a smartphone.
Right. So that enables, like, children, they could have a desk in front of them, and on that desk they could be building castles, they could be turning it into Mars or the moon.
Absolutely. And that's precisely the kind of thing we're working on at the moment.
Right.
And what is coming soon is that ability to not just consume content, but create content as well.
Wow.
And I can't talk too much about that, but watch this space. In a couple of months, we're going to be announcing and debuting something which is quite outstanding in that sense, where you can create your own world.
And has that been done in education previously?
There are lots of... I always go back to when you first walk into a classroom.
Yeah.
Technologically, these things are different, but all we're doing is actually looking at what's happened in classrooms for 100+ years.
Yeah.
So if you go into a classroom, a year one classroom, a reception classroom, you'll see a sand table in the middle of it, and there'll be children stood around it. They might be playing in water, they might be playing in sand. There's all kinds of things going on there and everything, but they're imagining, they're creating, and what's happening around that table is fantastic. So if you think about what children do and what they create in their own minds, going back to that thing of what is immersion, they are creating and they are immersed in what's going on. And our friend Andrew that we both know, we work with as well, he always says in classrooms, teachers often make the mistake of saying, what colour is that car that you're playing with down there? Instead of saying, where are you going in that car? And that's the thing. So if you look at that table, there's a lot going on there, and we're trying to emulate that. So looking at those principles and bringing those, using technology to do it, we can perhaps shortcut the time it takes for a child to be starting here and then having a fully immersive experience here. We can crunch that down and make something happen.
And something that can happen in a team environment.
Yeah, it can happen in the context of your peers, your learning peers, so your classmates. It could happen individually. I'm not saying we shouldn't have individual learning experiences, but it's certainly something that can be mediated and can happen in the context of the wider learning that's happening around you as well.
Right.
So it's not just, hey, look at this. It's like the teacher is in control of that wider context.
Right.
And that's really, really critically important.
And what sort of impact do you think technology like augmented reality, virtual reality, is going to have on children growing up? Because surely this is going to become a much bigger part of our future, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's always interesting that whenever I'm demonstrating augmented reality or something to teachers, the gasps I get from teachers are far bigger than the gasps I get from the children.
Yeah, kids know, don't they?
It's just like they really love it. They really love it. But the teachers think, that some of them cross themselves. It's like, what have you just done? Burn him. He's like, what's going on? I remember the very, very first time I showed augmented reality in a classroom in Fleetwood in Lancashire, and I gave this teacher an iPad, and she's looking through this iPad and it was quite old in augmented reality terms now, 6 years ago. And we'd made the cenotaph. It was a World War I project up here, and she looked at it and she sort of looked around like, what have you done? What have you
conjured?
What have you conjured? And then she looked around and she looked to see if anyone was looking at her, and then she looked underneath the iPad.
Really?
Because she just had to convince herself that actually we hadn't conjured up a model on the floor in front of her.
Wow.
Now that, when I looked at that, I just thought, that is amazing. We've done something right. We've done something right. So if you can replicate that, then but to the children, this is something they expect, this kind of, if they've got technology in the classroom, they want it to do something like that. They expect it to do something. They're going home and they're doing all kinds of things. They're creating their own content. They're making music. They're making films. They're sharing it instantly. They're collaborating, all those things. It's very difficult to do that in the classroom because of things like safety. We want to protect them, so they can't be as connected. So absolutely. The kids are like, bring it on.
I suppose you can't really have such a huge gap within technology that is usable outside of school and what is inside of school. Because you think with like TikTok, like Minecraft, like Fortnite, all of these things are games that like kids can really get involved in, like really and they get involved in teams, like all their mates will be on Fortnite sharing it. And to then be having some like crappy version of like some old computer game or something like that, it's not going to stimulate them.
No, it's not. And one of the principles that we've developed in Discovery Education is that we have to be mindful of production values. Because it's patronising to the children to sort of think, no, you can have some second-hand view of this and everything, because you're right.
Yeah.
And also, it's really difficult as a teacher, as a school, as a head teacher. How do you control access to those things? These are massive threats. And then you've got the media who are blaring out, children shouldn't be using tablets, they shouldn't be looking through the devices, they shouldn't. You've got all this hysteria going on and the threats and the fear and everything going on. It's like, it's very difficult to settle into something in a classroom and say, no, it's okay to do this. It's okay to do this.
The problem is the world is massively and rapidly accelerating in one particular direction, and that is technology.
Yeah, it is.
Digital technology.
Yeah. And
to have like outside sources like the press or whatever then to say, oh, we shouldn't be doing this, we can't stop it now. I was having this conversation the other day, like in 20 years time, everything's going to be that. Even your fridge is just going to be like,
oh yeah.
Swipe across, get the milk out, set the temperature for this particular part. It's all going to be like that.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah.
And there's no way we're going to go back to, we're not going to, unless there's some cataclysmic
like a pandemic or something.
Like a pandemic, yeah. I mean, like, that won't happen.
No.
That won't happen.
Crazy.
That'll be stupid. A pandemic. That'll never happen. Not in this lifetime.
No.
Not in our lifetime.
No.
But it makes you think though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
If that can happen.
But I'll tell you something else as well that really gets me is with the media, is this perception that children love technology in the classroom. They love it. They enjoy interacting with it. Yeah. And enjoyment sounds like fun to the media.
Yeah.
And you're not there to have fun. You're there to learn. Definitely. It's you can't have
education.
Fun. It's exactly. It's no, that really gets me. That really gets me. That of course children should have fun, because when they're having fun, and this is the art of teaching. Yeah. People don't get this. The art of teaching is molding and melding all those experiences into something that equals learning. Yeah. And fun can be part of that learning as well.
Well, I think when you enjoy something, whatever it is,
your mind is open.
You absorb it and you do it better.
Yeah.
Than if you're being forced to do something that you don't enjoy or don't want to do.
Totally.
Or it's being delivered in a way that is just mind-numbing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
So it's like, I think we have to have a more, as a society, we have to have a more modern approach to how we do things. We know now, we know that to enjoy something is going to allow you to put more energy. You're going to be more open to it. You're going to want to do it. If you want to do something, you're going to do it more. You do it more. Yeah. You're going to be better at it.
That's right. Yeah, you are. I mean, there's lots of phases and levels of learning, lots of different ways that children learn and adults learn, and that we all absorb information and everything. But the key to it all is that moment. We have phrases for it: cognitive attraction, and cognitive load, and all these different phrases. But the idea is that if you create that spark, then what you're doing, you're opening up a crack. Yeah. And it's an opportunity. Yeah. And if you've got everything else ready to go with that, then you can step into that. Yeah. And you can exploit what you've just created, which we call engagement. And if you've got the engagement, then you can turn engagement into an investment by the learner into actually learning something. Yeah. And if they're doing it, if they're learning by osmosis, just picking it up, fantastic. You can't do that every day in the classroom. Yeah. Sometimes it's just got to be, no, this is how you add up. This is how you do long multiplication. You just got to go with it. Yeah. But if you're teaching a concept, quite abstract. Yeah. Like if you're talking about evolution, then why not use technologies like this that really make children just feel the awe, the wonder, the enjoyment, and the fun of what it is that they're trying to learn. Yeah.
So if this is where we're now seeing like this kind of technology making its way into primary schools, where is it going to go? Like, what would a primary school in 50 years look like?
It's a great question. I was talking about this recently, and I'm sure you've seen the Metahumans, from Unreal. If you haven't seen everyone should look at it. It's crazy, people still are arguing. It's a bit like that woman I talked about, that teacher when she first looked underneath the iPad. Yeah. It's people are arguing, saying.
So what is a metahuman?
So it's a super real representation of a human being. Looks like a human, sounds like a human. All the inflections. I don't know if you're aware of the uncanny valley principle.
No.
Which is like if you give a child a doll, that looks like a doll, it doesn't look like a human. Yeah. Then they'll cuddle it, they'll play with it. If you give them something that's hyper real and super real, they're a bit frightened of it because we've evolved to look at things like that are lifeless, actually as cadavers, as human, as bodies.
Right.
So, and that's when you're looking at like computer animation. Quite often, there's something not right here. That's the uncanny valley effect.
Right.
And you can't quite get past it. You're always aware. And so once we get past that leap, once we leap past the uncanny valley, and that's what's happening with metahumans, people will start to have an emotional reaction to what they're seeing on the screen. And once that starts happening, it's like, no, I'm talking to a human now.
Wow.
And once you start to talk to what you think is a human, then all kinds of things happen because your emotions open up. And I think that's what we're going to see, is learning that's mediated through something along these lines. How that's presented, I don't know. In 50 years' time is a huge amount of time.
So could there be a scenario where a metahuman is your teacher?
Yeah, I think we will see things like that. Might not be your teacher, but you might be presented
Might be
with
your assistant teacher.
Well, no, it might be that person from history. It might be someone that's, so, you might be in the presence of someone.
So you're bringing back like Winston Churchill as a metahuman.
Yeah, exactly. So you might be listening to that, and because the uncanny valley is being passed, at the moment you look at it and you think it's just a computer model.
Yeah.
But once you get to it and it looks like you and I, then how are you going to feel about that? How are you going to act in front of that person? You're going to see things, you're going to hear things. That's just one scenario. There'll be other scenarios as well that could be, if you think of mental health and the mental well-being of students, teachers and young people. What if they were to have a critical friend in their learning that was a metahuman? How would you open up to that person? Very, very serious ethical questions to consider. As who's pulling the strings of the metahuman?
Well, exactly.
It's massive, isn't it?
Exactly.
I would not. I think that is very, very disturbing.
And we know that the military are using like virtual reality and things like that now. And I suppose the ethical question is, because I know that from what I understand, I don't know how accurate this is because I'm not in the military, but I understand that they are recruiting gamers to fly drones.
Yeah, I think that's been a thing for quite some time, hasn't it?
And they're giving them like PS pads. Yeah. And they're flying these drones and launching real attacks.
Well, exactly.
And I don't know, is it going too fast? Is it going too far? I mean,
I challenge that, what you've just said, in that I think, what's the difference between, all of these scenarios are bad, by the way, I'm not saying this is a good scenario. What's the difference between a gamer, a young person that's been recruited into the military to fly drones, as opposed to a young person that's been recruited into the military to actually shoot an actual gun?
Well, there's no difference, apart from the ease of doing it, because there's no, what's the word? To point a gun and shoot someone, looking them dead in the face, requires a different. It comes from a different place.
So what you're talking about?
Ex-army, you know that, right?
Well, yes. Well, when I was in the army, we had BBC computers, so I can't really talk about the use of technology. But I think what you're talking about, which I think is quite sinister, is the gamification of war. And that's a big thing, isn't it? So, if you are flying a drone with something akin to a PS4, 5 controller, and all you're seeing is something that you're used to seeing in the interface of a game, a realistic game, then you might be depersonalized and you might not feel the effects of that.
Exactly.
Of what it is you're trying to do. So that is a big thing, and that will be exploited. Immersive learning techniques will be exploited in order to get people past those problems of perception and their moral, wall that they face to pass through that.
Because there's nothing more lethal than a human being with a PS pad.
A child with a PS4 controller.
A child with a PS4 dropping real bombs on people with no emotional attachment to it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it goes back to the experiments that were done. I can't remember the name of the experiments where, people were told to administer shocks to, and it's like, no, you've been told to do it. So they administered the shocks. It was actually an actor on the other side of it. But they did administer shocks that would have been lethal. And because you were told to do it. So we have this relationship with authority. And if you take that inclination we have to obey authority, add a layer of virtual reality to it, or some kind of reality to it
that numbs it down a bit.
That actually sort of, then what can we do? And
I saw a documentary about that. Is it when they were trying to understand what made the Nazis turned normal people into murderers?
There might have been something to do with that in it, but I think it was more to do with just looking at levels of authority and just how prepared would you be, to actually cause another human being, as far away as we are, serious physical pain through electric shocks just because someone told you to, because it's an experiment, and people took it. Lots of people. Some said no, I'm not doing it, but others took it to what would have been a lethal amount of electricity.
And I suppose to add, like we're saying, to add that virtual reality aspect to that, it's going to make it a lot easier.
Yeah, it is, and I suppose that's why we spend so much time trying to do the opposite of this, trying to create experiences that our big thing is that immersion is about emotion. That equal the same thing. So what we want is to prod and poke those emotions and get an emotional response. And if you get an emotional response, then maybe you can understand something. So we want to flip it round. We want to do something. So our World War I experience, which we did, which has been very, very popular, was not about the history. So you create something that's very historically accurate. You've walked around in virtual reality around our World War I.
It's
really convincing, isn't it, that you feel there. But what we do is we up the emotional cues, so we up the atmosphere. So you can hear the rain, you can hear the bombardment, you can hear the soldiers coughing. There's a sense of foreboding, jeopardy, and everything. So the idea of that is that you put children into that, and they come out, and they're a bit kind of, whew, I don't want to do that. That was intense. So then they can express that, and they can think about, rather than going in, well, yes, there was a Lee Enfield 303 rifle in there, which has so many bullets in the magazine, and we were able to shoot it, and everything. That's a whole different thing.
But I suppose by doing it that way, where you're going in there and you're experiencing, I suppose, the negative energies attached to war and what it would be like, because these people one day they're going to be running the country or running whichever countries they're in. And when those decisions about how we move forward in like a military, these are the people who are going to be making these decisions one day, this generation. And I suppose equipping them and giving them as much understanding of the harsh realities of this world and the good realities of this world.
Very much so.
It's going to give them a much more rounded perspective on things.
It is, and that's education. That is education. I'm going to bash the media a little bit, because they all think about it in terms of test results, and we're talking about a lost generation at the moment, which I think is nonsense. But education is all about that. It's all about your introduction into society. It's all about the contextualization of who you are, where you are, and how to think, how to respond, how to lead, how to be led, all of those things.
Why do you think, Phil, that if you look at the rapid acceleration of technology over the past 40 years, if you look at a classroom from, say, 1875 and 1975, how wildly different is it? Not that much.
Not that much, no.
1975 to 2021 is a very different place.
Yeah, it is. It's that exponential growth in technology, isn't it? And what happens because it just feeds itself, so it is exponential. And that's certainly what we're seeing. We're in that place, and it's a place I like. Where I don't want to be settling for what we've got now. I want it to be going to the next level. I want to see the metahumans in the classroom. I want to see those things. I want to know what can be done with that. I think it's very exciting to be in education, to be able to have access to technology like this. It's frustrating because we've got all the boundaries that we have to apply to it, and we've got to have those boundaries. But at the same time, it's really that the tools are there. And what we've got to do is break the old education formula, which, our schools are still, we talk about this all the time, the Forster's Education Act of 1870. We're still in that area where it's reading, writing, maths, reading, writing, arithmetic, it's that kind of thing. And that's important. That's very, very important. But that old system isn't compatible with it's not compatible with virtual reality, augmented reality, and immersive learning, that's for sure. It's hard to make those things happen in the classroom. It's an effort for the teacher to do it.
And do you think there will ever be a time when they start teaching kids about social media, safe use of social media? And
they're doing that now.
Right.
They're doing that now. That is something that every teacher digital literacy, all these things that are grappling with. And it is a huge challenge. There's no question about it. It's one of the biggest challenges. Because if you think of education, think of learning, it's like what you're being told and the authority of what you're being told. It comes from a source that you assume is right. And then think about how much learning do we do about the world around us that's mediated by people who actually do not have that formal authority. So you're getting your learning through social media. There are 12 influencers apparently, aren't there, in globally at the moment, who are leading most of the conspiracy theories around vaccines. And anti-vaxxing. So that's phenomenal. That's not coming from a school.
So that's 12, just 12?
12 influencers, it's being reported.
That are basically the
responsible
source
for something like 64% of they are the source for 64% of the material and the content that is used to back
just
up.
12?
Yeah, but they've got vast followings. Vast followings. We talk 100+ million followers.
I've got to say, some of the content out there is pretty convincing, isn't it? Like,
well, it is.
Speaking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen flat Earth videos that have almost had me though. So.
I don't know what to say to that, Nick, other than I'll show you some videos from the International Space Station.
Nah, I can't be swayed on that. But I did watch this one flat Earth video. Now I know flat Earth is obviously bollocks, right?
Yeah.
But I did watch this one video when I was speaking to my friend, and I was saying, and he was talking about it. I said, it's pretty convincing, and I was like, it is pretty convincing. And then there was a brief moment, I swear there was like a brief moment where I thought,
You almost jumped down that rabbit hole.
I almost did, but then I thought, you know what, I've travelled the world on multiple times. I've seen the curvature of the Earth.
You've seen the curvature of the Earth. You've seen the videos from space.
Yes, I've seen them. I've watched the GoPro go into space.
Yeah.
And even though I have arguments with flat earthers about this all the time, I say, I've seen a GoPro go into space, and they say, no, it's CGI.
Well, exactly. And you see, this is the challenge of education.
Yeah.
And this is there's what we were talking about before. There's technology on one side of it, which is like the massive, like a huge wall of information. Of which you can't verify it. And then you've got education, formal education, which is teaching things, and they are at odds. But what we're trying to do is be able to teach children to think and to have rational processes of thought. But that's incredibly difficult in the face.
This is the thing. So as technology develops, what is truth becomes blurry. So for example, deep fakes. You can create someone's face on someone else's image. Now, for children, this is a whole new thing that they're going to have to... If you think about a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, in 5 years' time, deep fake is going to be very normal.
It is, yeah. Well, it's the metahuman thing again.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that moral, ethical argument of who's going to put the words in the metahuman's mouth.
Yeah.
And, you've got Donald Trump talking incredibly intellectually in the metahuman classroom of the future about his administration from 20 years ago.
Yeah, and how he never lost the vote.
And how he never lost the vote.
Yeah.
Completely bending history and reality.
Yeah.
This
is the thing.
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
That's scary.
But would that not create a world of chaos?
Yes.
Because no one would know what the truth is.
Well, yeah, truth and facts.
Truth and facts, yeah.
So facts are a big area of contention because people equate feelings with facts now as well. So that's something else that we try to mediate through immersive experience.
So what do you mean feeling with facts?
Well, so if as an individual, if I don't understand something, there's a tendency for us to go, well, I just look at this and I think, I'm looking at the sunset and I'm thinking there has to be more to life. There has to be more to life. I can feel it. Then it becomes my fact.
Right. Okay.
Or I just fervently believe that 5G is propagating the coronavirus. I feel it. I really feel it.
Yeah.
I feel threatened by it. So my feelings then become someone else's fact. They can become someone else's fact, and it's mediating between those two things is incredibly difficult. It's like, so a child can feel something, but then that doesn't equate with what the facts are actually going to tell them. How do you get them to understand that intersection between what you're experiencing and what you want? You might even want to be a fact.
Yeah.
I want there to be life on Mars, to the reality, which is there might not be life on Mars. It's like, so that's where the conspiracy theories start and everything else. And schools, right at the forefront of trying to lead children in ways to think constructively, rationally about issues. That's really difficult.
What I find what I find quite incredible is as we're seeing this rapid growth of technology over the past, 40, 50 years, really since the 60s, isn't it? It's really sort of gone crazy. I started thinking about how far we've come in that short amount of time, and if we were to continue on this trajectory of exponential technological growth in the way that we are, it then gets me thinking. So a few weeks ago, I had a guy on the show called Nick Pope.
Oh I know of Nick Pope. Yeah. I watched that. And it's very good.
So one of the things that something that he raised to me, and this is where I saw, and when he raised to me about simulation theory, that maybe everything is a simulation, and we could just be a game in somebody else's world, or it could be a game within a game, for example. And a few years ago, I would never been able to take that in as something as a realistic possibility. But as I'm seeing things grow, and as I'm seeing how good virtual reality is becoming, it is making me think that at what point would you be able to differentiate between reality and virtual reality? And that's not far away. So if that's not far away in our world, then the possibility of this being some form of like simulation doesn't seem, I mean, it seems pretty damn unlikely, but it doesn't seem impossible.
No, there are some serious thinkers, some serious physicists and scientists out there who play with this idea as well, that we are living in a simulation. And the thing is you can't disprove it.
No. So
we could be living in a simulation, but that's what I mean by rational thinking. Rational thinking sometimes is just saying, I don't know. I just don't know. Not filling it with a fantasy. It could be this, therefore it will be this. It's like when I see a plane flying overhead and I see the trails left behind, why should I think that they're chemtrails or something? It's that kind of thing. We fill in the gaps with stuff. So two things really. Yes, this could be a simulation, because of course we could always have some higher being that is playing with us, toying with us. But then you've got to say, well, why? Why are they doing that? And it could be for all kinds of reasons. But then the other thing is that my feelings and your lived experience and everyone else here is whether we're in a simulation or not, the consequences for if I'm an avatar, I can have serious consequences for some other avatar that lives in this world, in this simulation as well. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's a fascinating thought experiment. And most serious scientists that consider it as a thought experiment. Because it's useful, it helps, it's a philosophical argument. And it's a really good example. It's a really good, and you can apply it to all kinds of things, can't you?
And I think just watching the growth of technology and how impressive it's becoming, it kind of makes these possibilities of ideas that are like thought experiments, really, like simulation theory. There's no way of ever proving it, but it makes the possibility of it become more real. And that's just one example, but it also makes the possibility of what the future could be like be really quite incredible, both in a very positive way, I suppose, but also technology can be used for bad and
it is,
good.
Because I mean, what would you think of the person that's created the simulation, if it is a simulation?
Well, I mean, I'm quite happy at the moment. I think I quite like him.
Yeah, but that's you. But what about others? Why do we have so much suffering then?
Exactly.
What's this creation? What's it all about? It seems pretty cruel to me.
Wait, it's like the whole God theory, isn't it? When you hear about when you hear like children dying, like seeing what's happening over in the Middle East at the minute, and you see that, and you don't understand why. Why would a good God, a just God, take a child's life? Like it's hard to ever get your head around that in the context of a God being this just, good, loving being who wants to save and protect us all. Well, if that was the case, why would they take a 6-month-old child?
It's really difficult, isn't it? And that's why we end up filling in all the gaps with bigger and bigger and bigger ideas about, and they get wilder and wilder and more imaginative, the more we come up with something. And then at the end of it, what do you have is you just have something called faith. You just have to believe, you see. So don't question it, just believe it. And that's always the brick wall. And in science, that's not how it is. It's like, we don't know, but we'd like to find out. We'd like to find out. So the burden of proof, I always think, is on people to explain and prove why their conspiracy theory or their view of it is, you need to explain, because I'm not trying to explain that this isn't a simulation, because I don't know the answer. Don't
you think we are all, as a society and as a culture in general, we are massively trying to fill in the blanks? In every aspect.
We always have been. We always have been, from the first people that could look up and see the sun going across the sky and thought, well, that's got to be that's a big flaming ball of fire that's been pulled on a chariot from morning till night and everything, and so it goes on. So it goes on. Those they're stars. They're just lights. They're just someone else, and someone lights them and then puts them out every night, and that it's just an extension of that, and it will just keep on going and going. But because of the exponential growth of knowledge, technology, and everything, the lengths we're going to, those theories get bigger and bigger and bigger.
What I find crazy is if you really think about it, like now we're in this like place of like technological growth, but if we've, for example, 2,000 years ago and say 300 years ago, so there wasn't that much difference. Do you see what I mean? Coal, I think it's like steam energy. Coal energy is probably something that was a big difference. But I mean, it's not a huge technological change, really, is it?
No.
Is it? So even if you look at them 2,000 years ago, like biblical times, 10,000 years prior to that, not much change. 100,000 years to that, not much change. It's almost like man's been here for best part of 250,000 years, and all of a sudden, bang, in the 20th century, it all clicks.
It's crazy. We did a book, and at the bottom of the book was a timeline, and it was about the prehistoric Britain. And so at the bottom of every page there was this little strip like this, and it started off here in the Paleolithic times, 800,000 years ago. And then it went on to the other end, from the Roman invasion, AD 43. And that tiny bit is where all that happened, and that bit was to scale. If we had that bit to scale on this book, that strip on the page would have been just under 10 miles long, where nothing happened. So that's it. So it's all scrunched up into this, like you say, this tiny bit of thing, and it's just getting more and more dense and condensed, which I think is exciting.
Why is that?
It's the exponential growth. It's the impact of what we do. So the more we know, the more we learn, the more we share, the more we invent, the more we advance, then the more we can do, the more we can learn, and so it goes on, and it snowballs and snowballs until we who knows where we're going to end up. No one can really say, of course.
I'd be interested to see what the modelling looks like based on that scale.
British Telecom used to have a fantastic thing where they used to look into the future.
Right.
Don't think they do it anymore, but we all used to look. We always used to wait for this thing to come out. And I always remember one of the things that they had was sentient yogurt. Was that in 20 years' time we'll have thinking yogurt? That yogurt will, I'm sure that the person, if happened to be listening to this, watching this, is thinking that's not what I meant. However, that's how it came across, and it made the headlines. Thinking, yogurt that's evolved from just being a bioculture to being something that's actually alive. Just wild theories and everything. But it was a fascinating read because it was just showed you, and some of the things that they said were just laughable, and some of the things happened, virtual reality being one of them.
Well, it's like Back to the Future 2. I remember watching that as a kid, and apart from the flying cars and the hoverboards, hoverboards exist.
It's a bit disappointing, really, isn't it, that we don't have
most of it, all the screens and stuff like that, and
exactly.
Like taking your order from a computer and stuff like all of that's real. The flying cars.
Well, I always think of Ada Lovelace.
Yeah.
She was the daughter of Lord Byron, the poet.
Right.
And she died 1850s, I think.
Right.
And she should be revered. She's an incredible figure in the history of modern computing.
Yeah.
Because in 1840, she took Charles Babbage's designs for the computer.
Right.
Well, the machine, which he didn't know what he had.
Right.
And she said, no, this could be it. And she imagined basically an iPad then. She talked about music being stored and made and everything.
What? In 1840?
Yeah, it's about 1842, 1840. I'd have to check.
Wow.
But she wrote algorithms. She is the first person to write software in Ada Lovelace. An incredible figure in history.
Wow.
So there have always been these people that
No
have
way
like
did I
just thought of that and could imagine something. And she couldn't do it. She couldn't actually do those things because computers didn't exist.
Yeah.
But what she wrote and what she did is the foundation of what we're doing now. So that frustration that people would have had back then to not being able to live it is quite something as well. So who knows what.
Do you think it is the computer that's triggered exponential growth?
I do. Most definitely that, and of course what came along with that, which was the World Wide Web, which existed a long time. It was there in the 60s.
What?
Yeah, they're in the 60s, being used by military establishments, by universities to share information. I remember as a kid, my dad, who worked for International Computers, would come home and he'd stick the phone receiver on a thing, and we'd have something like a 3.5K modem.
Really?
And everything. This was in the 70s. And everything.
Wow.
So that has been around for a long, long time, but then it accelerated and became, and obviously we are where we are now. But that, if you look at all the social change, the technological change, the catalyst, the thing that enables all of that is the sharing of information, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I find it what I find incredible, if you think about the moon, like the first moon landing, like 1969.
Yeah.
That was on a computer, less powerful than an iPhone.
Yeah, less powerful than a calculator. It's no more than a calculator. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes you think that what can be achieved, if they're achieving, feat, we can't go now. Well, we probably could, but for whatever reason, we haven't been. But it makes you think that if technology can be really used, even in its, what we would argue today is a primitive state, 1969 technology, and it can be pushed to that limit, how far can we push what we have today and take us into whatever this future could look like?
Well, exactly. I mean, the sky is the limit.
Literally,
the universe is the limit. Well, there is no limit. There is no limit. And that's what's exciting. And that's this kind of thinking. I mean, I know this is a typical conversation for us because we start somewhere and we go off on all kinds of things. But it is one of the driving forces of what we do, is trying to imagine what the world can be like. We have something we call them impossible field trips, which is to take children to places, to times, to situations and scenarios that they couldn't possibly be. And one of those things we want to do is challenge them to think. What would it be? What do you feel if you're here now? If the world is like this, whatever this is, that's a big deal. And how children react to that is a big deal.
And do you think augmented reality is going to have a permanent fixture in the classroom moving forward?
Yeah, I do. The way I think it's very clumsy. Augmented reality. It feels like the magic is there. When you experience it, the magic is there. There's no doubt about it. But you've got to hold this thing in front of you. It's like walking around. We call it a magic window, the way we do things. Walking around, and Apple will no doubt bring out some glasses and everything that will project that overlay on the world for you as well. Then that will evolve, hopefully, into something that, you're not wearing anything, but I don't know how it's going to happen. Lenses or something that you can overlay the world around you, and so on and so forth. That's when augmented reality crosses into virtual reality, actually, because virtual reality is just a frustrated version of what we want to happen in actual reality. So that's what we want to happen. So we know that children, adult users get very involved when they're walking around something if it's full scale with their device. We want that to happen, but we don't want this clumsy thing in front of you. We don't want this mediator. And when that happens, amazing things are going to happen in the world of immersion, in the world of this technology.
So when's the next product out from you guys?
2 months.
In 2 months?
Yeah, May, June, July, 2 months. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And how can that be accessed?
It's going to be free.
Right.
So
free for anyone.
Free for anyone. We're going to release something.
Not just for schools.
Not just for schools. Not just for schools. We're going to bring something out which is quite revolutionary.
Okay.
And is going to allow you to enter another world.
Wow.
yeah, I've got to be careful what I say, but and create those worlds and inhabit those worlds, and that's going to be free for anyone to use.
And will that be smartphone, Android, or?
And initially, it's going to be Apple only.
Right.
So that'll be iOS, and it'll be iPad, possibly on smartphone, but it was definitely going to be free. And obviously, we want schools to take it up, and to use it, because we want to see how they react to it.
Yeah.
So we don't want to give barriers. We want to open it up.
Yeah.
And we want to see them embrace this, because part of that exponential growth in technology is giving people the tools to do something with it that they might not know they wanted in the first place.
Exactly.
It's like, I can't ask for this because I don't know it exists.
Yeah.
Well, here you go. What if you had that? And so far, the results we're seeing is just like, oh, wow.
Wow.
And so hopefully that will then change what happens in the classroom. Happens in the minds of the children, happens in the minds of the teachers, the parents, everyone, and that exponential growth takes a different direction.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to have to do this again then once this is out there and we've seen how it's,
we'll show it,
and we've seen how it's impacting.
Yeah.
Then we should definitely pick this up again.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.